Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name's Rachel. This is Stitched Up. So welcome back to another Top Tip Tuesday, and this week we are going to be tackling mitered corners in dressmaking garments. Now I know that there are specific mitered corners that you can use for quilting projects, but we're not covering those in this tutorial today. I have got two methods to show you today to create a beautiful mitered corner finish on your dressmaking garments. And I'm sure many of you are asking, well, when are you going to use this? What sort of situations would you want to use a mitered corner? So I'm going to show you. This is my Paradise Patterns Hallen dress that I made for my holiday in Portugal, and it has a split up the side at the bottom. And what the instructions tell you to do is simply fold over, as you can see there, fold over twice and stitch down on the raw edges. And I think we can all agree that it looks a bit naff, I'm going to be honest, and lots of patterns tell you to do this. The saltwater slip is exactly the same. They all tell you to just turn over the bottom. I mean, look at that finish, it's rubbish, isn't it? And even on this dress that I'm wearing, which is the 70s pattern by Trend Patterns, the ruffle at the front, you all know, those of you that have been following me for some time now, that whenever I have a ruffled garment, I like to double face the ruffle because I just think it gives you a much neater finish, much more professional finish, and it's just what I prefer. But when I made this dress, I didn't have enough fabric to be able to do that, so I did have to fold over the corners and stitch them down. And the instructions again would have you do exactly what the Paradise Patterns tells you to do with the Hallen, what exactly Friday Pattern Company tell you to do with the saltwater slip. And this says exactly the same, but what I did this time was I thought I want a nice neat finish on this ruffle because it's going to flap about in the wind, and obviously if anybody's that close and they're going to see, they're really too close, but I just wanted a nice finish, so I created this little mitered corner finish. Hopefully you can see that. Let's see if this one shows up a bit better. There we go, look, nice neat mitered corner finish. It just, what can I say, it just takes your sewing finishing up a little notch. So I'm going to show you how I did this today. As I say, there are two versions that I'm showing you. One is for a single fold mitered corner and the other is for a double fold mitered corner. So a single fold is if you've only got a very narrow seam allowance and you don't have enough to create a double fold, then you can do it as a single. It's the easier method. It just means that you have to finish the raw seam first before you start creating the mitered finish. If you have a deeper seam allowance, you can do a double fold as I've done here. I am showing you with calico again today, and also I'm using black thread to highlight what I'm doing, so hopefully you'll be able to see clearly what I'm doing. But as always, if you've got any comments, leave them down in the description box below, and I will see you again next time. Bye. So we're going to start with the single hem method, and what we want to do first is finish our seams. So you can use your preferred finishing technique. I have used a overlocking stitch here on my overlocker, and then what I'm going to do next is I am just marking in what my seam allowance is. So on my scrap that I'm using here, I'm just marking in 1/2 inch, but yours might be 1/4 inch, 5/8 inch, whatever it is. Just mark it in with a erasable marker, and then just make a little mark where these two lines meet at the corner. So this is where we're going to make our first fold. You want to fold the corner in on the wrong side of your fabric, right on that marking point. And then what we need to do next is we take this to the ironing board and we just iron it. So that fold is right where that little dot is. And then fold back your seam allowances. So we're working obviously on the wrong side of the garment here. Fold back your seam allowances and press those seam allowances down, and then what you should find is that you've got a perfect little mitered corner. Look at that. Look how easy it is on a single fold. Honestly, it is that easy. It's easier than doing a double fold poor hem like I've shown you. What we need to do now is we're just going to top stitch this down. So I've just taken it to my sewing machine. I've got my foot on here that's got the little guide in the center, and I am just top stitching from the wrong side. I'm doing it in black fabric so that you can see, but it's really that simple, guys, really that simple, and I'm sure you'll agree it just gives you a much better finish. So when you've top stitched, you should have something that looks like that from the wrong side, it looks like that from the right side, and you've got that gorgeous little mitered corner. And there you go, as simple as that. Moving on to the double hem, which is a little bit more involved, but it's straightforward enough. What we're going to do first is we're going to fold back these edges by half our finished seam allowance. So for instance, if your finished seam is 1 inch, you want to fold it up and press it by ½ inch, and then fold it up and press it by another ½ inch, so that you've got 2 fold lines in your fabric. So once that's pressed, it should look something like this. And then what we need to do next is we are going to create another point where these fold lines intersect. Make a marking at the corner where your double fold meets, and then open out to a single fold and bring the corner to that marking that you've just made. Finger press it firmly so you've got a little indentation, and then open it out like this, and then just mark that indentation on both the wrong side and the right side of your fabric with an erasable marking tool. Next, we need to fold the fabric back on itself, right sides together, in half. So this might just be a little bit awkward, but you're folding it back on itself, making sure that those markings, the edges of those markings that you've just made, meet, and then what we're going to do is we're going to stitch across that corner. So we're back over at the sewing machine now. We just want our normal clear view foot on here. Just, you can use pins for this, but just make sure that those markings meet, and then we're just going to sew that marking that we've made, back stitching at the beginning and the end of our stitching line. And then I've used black thread so that it makes it pretty obvious what I'm doing so that you can see. Then we need to chop off this corner, so you can use scissors or snips, but just removing this bulk. So cut your corner off like so. And then all we need to do now is open it out, and like magic, your double folded mitered corner will appear just like that. What we need to do now is give this a good press over at the iron. Then when you've done that, we just need to top stitch the seam. So we're back over at the sewing machine. I've changed to my foot that's got a little guide there, so I can butt the guide up against that folded edge. We're working from the wrong side of the fabric, and again I'm using black thread so that you can see what I'm doing. We're moving the needle across. I move mine to 1.8 just so that I just catch that folded seam, and then work into the corner with the needle in the down position, pivot, turn your fabric round, and then carry on sewing. And then when you've done, you should have a double folded mitered seam that looks something like this from the wrong side and the right side. And there we have it. We've got our 2 finishes for mitered corners on a single fold and a double fold. See you next time.